Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Voice Out. Thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule and attending today's episode. Well, today's episode is going to be really, really special to me, and you are going to know why. So, let me begin. Accept what it is, let go of what was, and have faith in what it will be. The sixth color of the rainbow is indigo, and for me, it stands to surrender, to let go. You love yourself when acceptance falls in place. And when you transform because of your faith, you need to have patience, let go, and surrender. Surrender it to God, surrender it to the universe. Hi, my name is Rosie Bonita Fernandez, and I am your host and the founder of Being Beautiful. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce you, my speaker today, who is Rajit Ravindranath, who is going to talk to us about dealing with depression and anxiety. We always hear women speak up, don't we? But it is very rare that men agree to speak up and express their emotions. Rajit is a survivor, he is dauntless, and he dealt with his mental health journey, which is absolutely beautiful. When I asked Rajit to send me something, any kind of quote which he believes in or anything which he goes by, so he sent me this. There are wounds that never show up on the body that are more painful than a physical wound. You can either look at it as scars or a gift, which helps you understand others' sorrow and help them look at it as a gift. This is really beautiful, Rajit. So, Rajit, welcome to Voice Out.
Thank you, Bonita. And I think it's a great initiative taken by you to reach out to people and have speakers share their story and experiences. I hope it influences or motivates, inspires a lot of people out there.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on this show because I did approach quite a few men, but you were the only one who agreed to be on this season, and I was really very happy that you agreed. We did speak much before this as well, and at that time, I was in the idea of launching the show, but it was not a concrete decision. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Rajit, my first question to you is now, since we all know that you're the first male speaker on my show, firstly, I'm very glad that you agreed to come on Voice Out. Why did you think it was important for you to speak up and express, your journey?
Okay. So why it's important for me to speak up? Now, believe it or not, but I'm actually an introvert. I don't speak up. And the fact is that I've been trained pretty much that way from childhood. So I was born and raised in Bahrain, and anything that I say or I do can negatively impact a lot of people, is what I was taught. Um, uh, so I kept everything to myself. I never spoke to anyone, and there were a lot of traumatic events in my childhood. But I again, just kept it to myself. I never ever spoke to anybody, which made me look like a weird kid in a classroom. So I was also, bullied, looked at as a weird kid, so on and so forth, right? But the moment I did speak up, the responses that I got was pretty overwhelming. And this, I'm talking about some of the initial videos that I had posted. And I got messages all across the globe asking me, or rather, yeah, asking me for advices. What can I do in such a situation? I'm going through something similar, or someone else is going through something similar. Or how did you tackle it? How did you help such a person, and so on and so forth. So looking at those responses when you put across that opportunity, the whole intent is to help people out there. Now, in whatever possible ways, not everything is about helping people through money, right? Sometimes it's just your life experiences and what you can share with them. The knowledge itself is very powerful to inspire and motivate people. So if I get a forum of that sort, I didn't think twice. If it's going to help anyone, inspire anyone, or get anyone motivated to do something different in their life and get rid of the nonsense in their life as well as their career, then I'll be very happy about it. That's why I decided that I should speak up.
Thank you so much. Firstly, I think I will. Cannot stop thanking you actually for agreeing to do this. Rajat, you have been following me on Being Beautiful as well, and you know that my page is all about self-acceptance. I say this in every episode. So, what is your idea of self-acceptance, or what is your idea of beautiful?
So my idea of beautiful, I'll tell you what's my idea of beautiful right now. So for me right now, everything is beautiful. And I refuse to live in a state which is not beautiful. Now, these are things that I've got from motivational speakers, through books, through many things. Like I believe our next speaker, Natasha, was inspired by The Secret. I don't mean to steal her thunder, but so was I. But these are all motivational books, as well as there are people like Tony Robbins. These are people whom I started following. When you hit ground zero, there's nothing else but going up. So I tried anything and everything, right? And a couple of things that I've understood is that your mind is very, very powerful. So what you perceive in your head is what becomes reality. Now, there are a lot of things that's going around us, even right now as we speak, right? A lot of pain, a lot of issues all across the globe. The pandemic, the war in Israel, and many things. Now, there's nothing much, maybe there's nothing much that we could do. But if we can just leave that out and focus on yourself and focus on things around you and see what you already have, what you are grateful for, makes you live in a beautiful state. You should refuse to live in any other state apart from that. Some of the things that I do is that before going to sleep, I think of 4 or 5 things that I am very, very grateful for in life. And it can be as simple as a roof over my head, the clothes that I'm wearing, maybe the air condition, a wife who loves me dearly, my daughter who tops everything, and the fact that I have a job, many, many things like that. And I get up also thinking that I actually take a few minutes to do that. And it's you always start your day with a smile. Again, starting the day itself, in a beautiful state of mind, rather than I used to have the habit. The first thing that I get up is what I reach for is my phone. WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. I'm not that active, but still Instagram and the news. A lot of negativity comes across. There are positive stuff as well, but I kind of like stop that, and now I started focusing on these kind of things. It kind of changes your entire day. So to answer your question, what's beautiful for me? Honestly, everything right now that I believe in with conviction is beautiful. The underlining word over here is conviction, and for the rest of our session, you might hear this word over and over again.
That's nice. Yeah, in fact, even me, when I usually start my day with checking my phone, but it has been couple of I think weeks now that when I wake up, I don't check my phone immediately. I start with gratitude because I practice that basically every day. The first thing when I wake up, I say thank you, God, because to be alive itself is a biggest gift ever, and that is very beautiful. And Yes, of course. If there's something urgent and if there's a work call, then yes, I do attend. But if it's my personal phone, I avoid using it at least for the first 30 to 40 minutes, because you whatever you read and whatever you see, whatever you go through, that is what plays in your mind throughout the day. And I think if you start your day with gratitude, saying thank you for I even have a gratitude journal where I thank
Right.
different people, different situations, which help me grow. And I think I could resonate with you when you said that you don't check your phone when you wake up. I think it's very important. We all should start doing this, and we can see it ourselves how it is going to change our lives.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I know my wife is part of this call, so she knows that I'm not making this up. But when I wake up, I actually sit down, think of the things that I'm grateful for, go ahead, have a glass, a cup of coffee, and I in Mumbai. Now here I'm in Kerala, so it's lush green everywhere. But in Mumbai, in when you look outside your window, you don't get to see that much. But I actually have pots in my house where I have planted plants, and just simply sitting there, looking at them, looking at the trees outside, and not bothering about any of the chaos. It actually changes how you start your day. Yeah, but right,
Absolutely,
very, very rightly said.
absolutely. Because I hope our listeners and are listening to this, because it is hard when you wake up and not check your phone. I understand, because it was not easy for me as well. But eventually you get into the habit of not checking your phone immediately, and it really helps. And you yourself is going to see how your day is going to proceed further. So, Rajat, my next question is about your personal journey. How and when did you realize that you were depressed? And what are those? What happened? Like, what came to you, and how did you handle that anxiety?
Okay, that boring story. Uh, all right.
No, it's
So
not boring.
how? I'm just kidding. So how did I get through this depression? Long, but hopefully our listeners and viewers will be patient with me. So um, I have met at least three psychiatrists and three psychoanalysts. Now, according to them, my depression started somewhere between the age of 10 and 14, and I'm 38 now. The thing is that I never realized it. Back then, you know, neither were the society, friends, relatives, nobody had the kind of um, knowledge or access to resources like what we have today to understand what is depression, what is anxiety. Now, why it happened? So there were a lot of traumatic events growing up as a child, which I sincerely hope from my heart that no other child ever goes through. I'll leave the rest to all of your imagination because I don't want to say anything which would hurt the living or the dead for that matter. But many things, right? And as a child, I was too scared to put across my feelings or my thoughts, and um, you know the first group of people that you would generally approach to are your parents. But it was a totally different ball game back then, and it probably still is, where you have so many mouths to feed, and you have many things in your mind, um, where children listen, and um, I kind of like thought that it's better that I just keep it to myself. So it built up, it kept building up for a very long time. Uh, the retaliation and the effects of depression started coming out somewhere around the age of 16, where um, firstly, depression is, um, I mean, this is my thought and my understanding. You can't have a blanket statement saying that this person is facing through depression. Depression honestly has many categories. In fact, it even have alphabetical distributions from what I understand, like A, B, C. There is kinds of depression like bipolar depression, and some are like really critical. Some are um, um, because of substance abuse. So it's alcohol-induced depression and many things. So it's not that easy to understand. Anxiety, I think, pretty much plays a role in it, and it comes as a part and parcel of depression. Now, when I started retaliating, there were different ages. The retaliation or the effects of depression was entirely different. Like at the age of 16, I was more like a little violent kid, right, breaking things in the house, and I've hurt my parents many times. I started drinking at the age of 14. Um, and I've been dependent on alcohol since then. I became an alcoholic. Um, I don't drink anymore. It's been months and months that I've touched alcohol, but it was a very very difficult journey before you could get that far. Now the problem started when the tolerance level for alcohol increased a lot. Quarter 90, half a bottle was not enough, right? And the whole intent of, so basically I became my own doctor, and I decided that alcohol is the medication that I need because I don't like this world, and I need to be in another world which I can imagine and I can actually be in. That beautiful state of mind that I was talking about, I used alcohol to get that. So it was like a euphoric feeling initially, and then when it fades, you want to get back there and you drink more and more, and then instead of making it better, you actually end up making it worse. Then the reaction started becoming very different. I would just talk to anybody and everybody. I would just walk out of the house drunk, have fights with my wife many a times, and it all and the things that I couldn't understand was that the next day after drinking, when you get up, you're filled with so much emotions, regret, guilt, sorrow. Everything is just engulfed your brain to such an extent that you can't get over it till you don't drink again, and it becomes a vicious circle. So and you end up speaking to anybody and everybody, telling them your story. At some point in time, I think it was to just get sympathy that, okay, man, you suffered a lot. We get it, and we feel sorry for you. Just to hear that, I don't have the courage of saying that when I'm sober. So you get drunk and you speak to anybody and everybody. At times, it became acquaintances, not people that you know. And the next day, again, the same loop. Why did you even tell these people? What if they use it against you? So on and so forth. And it kept going on and on. There was this day on September 16th last year. It was my wife's birthday, where again, after everyone went to sleep, I got drunk and I said, this is enough. Now, I'm not getting anywhere. I hit ground zero. The questions kept rising up. Why me? The entire childhood flashed in front of me, and no child should suffer so much, and the suffering just doesn't seem to end. So let me just end myself. I came to that point where I said that it's enough. You don't need to live anymore. There's no use in you living anymore. I didn't do anything, but the thought was very, very strong, almost like as if I would have done it. I would have killed myself or committed suicide. But what stopped me was the thought of my daughter, as in, how would she grow up? Then how will my wife survive? I've already hurt my parents enough. Even through death, I'm going to give them pain. And I only remember just changing my mind and going back to sleep got up in the morning and I just couldn't believe what I just thought yesterday. So again, I got drunk. And this time, as usual, I called my friends in Goa and I told my wife and everybody that, you know what, I felt like killing myself yesterday, but now I just want to run away. I just started talking rubbish. I want to go to Goa. I want to live in Goa for a while. I don't care about jobs. I don't care about this, that, whatever it may be. And as usual, my wife got, I mean, not as usual, but as expected, my wife got angry initially because it was an everyday thing, right? And I blamed everyone else for why I am like this. I blame my wife, I blame my parents, I blame everyone that I can think of, my friends, all the people who hurt me when I was a child, so on and so forth. So uh, at she waited for me to be sober, and then finally she said that Rajat, there is seriously something wrong. We need to do something. Now, it's not like she hasn't told me this before, and it's not like my friends haven't told me this before. But the fact that I had the audacity to think that I will leave everyone hanging and just kill myself um, kind of made me drop my ego because I was too egoistic, right? And I decided that I'll go get some help. So I approached psychoanalysts. From psychoanalysts, I approached psychiatrists, and psychiatrists, they heard me out and they said that you have clinical depression. Till then, for me, the meaning of depression was sad,
Yeah.
but that's not the reality of depression. You have clinical depression, um, you have anxiety issues, and you also have a personality disorder. Now, personality disorder is not like how you see in movies where I become another character and I talk in a different language. Here, the personality disorder is that which started at a very young age, where when you're not able to handle a situation or when you're stressed, you use alcohol, create a character in your head, and you let that character handle it. And that's why when you come back to your senses, you're filled with guilt, sorrow, and everything because you would never do that. And that's not really you. So finally, I said, okay, when I spoke to my wife first, when I actually accepted, yes, I have a problem. I accepted it to my friend as well, my best friend. And by speaking to two people, I got the courage to tell my parents. I told my sister. And then something really miraculous happened where I started getting the support of people whom I never could actually take the time to support me, especially my sister. Now she's a doctor and do treatment. Now I decided I will, but it's an addiction for almost 20, 22 years. It's not easy. I've had multiple relapses since then. But when I reached Kerala, it's like as though you mentioned about universe. When you're changing, you need a lot more to change, right? And suddenly, as I was getting the treatment for um, depression and anxiety, I stopped drinking alcohol in between. I think a person truly fails only when he stops trying. Until then, he's just learning how not to do things. So I kept doing that. And one day I just got this weird stomach pain. I told my sister, and she said that it's probably gastritis or acidity or whatever it may be. But by the third day, I was in so much of pain that I collapsed. And people in the house rushed me to the hospital. And then they realized that my appendix burst, basically, my intestine burst. Now, it has nothing to do with alcohol. It has nothing to do with smoking. It has nothing to do with any of the other things. I mean, if you have to blame anything, it would be food, right? The appendix burst. The acid that is there, the enzymes that's there in your intestine, it went up my lungs, burned 25% of my lungs. As a defense mechanism, my kidneys shut down. One of the kidneys got swollen, and I got admitted in the hospital. I was in the ICU for 4 days. My stomach was cut open. They had to cut the intestine. I don't mean to make it sound graphic, but I want to make people understand that this is the pain and this is the things that happen. And yet I didn't give up, right? So from the ICU, 4 days in the ICU, 6 days in the hospital. After 10 days, I come out with 23 staples on my stomach, and inside, my sister said she could. And the funny part is, she only, I mean, it's not funny, but she's the one who did the surgery, because she was a surgeon in that hospital. She also became famous. I also became famous in that hospital. It's the first time my sister operated on a brother. But anyway, the surgery was successful, and I came home with 23 staples, and inside I said, how many stitches are there inside the body? She said, I have no idea. When I'm doing a surgery, the last thing I'm going to do is count stitches. I said, fair enough, right? So I got through all that, and I still didn't give up. People supported me, and finally I got a hang of it. Now, 10 days in the hospital, I didn't smoke. So that's when I realized that that is also possible. Because till then I thought maybe alcohol is still a possibility, but stopping smoking was not. But that also happened. I mean, I can't honestly say today that I completely stopped smoking. I do here and there, but that journey is also going to start. But yeah, drinking is completely stopped. Now, handling this depression and anxiety, I've gone to psychiatrists, I've gone to psychoanalysts, as I mentioned. I've gone through a lot of physical pain, which I didn't expect at all. And when you went through all this, I've seen the love of people around, because my sister said, you're not supposed to be alive. And you better take this as a new life, because generally a person's pressure drops if it drops to 80. You become like brain dead in 15 minutes. Technically, you're not supposed to be alive, but somehow you pull through it. And the anesthesia was also not working on you. But net, you got another life. Now make the best out of it. So if you ask me how I dealt with depression and anxiety, there are two ways to deal with it. And I would suggest both the ways. And it's my personal suggestion. It may or may not work for you, but it's up to whoever is listening to this, whether they want to try. One is the rational approach, which everybody should take, whoever is going through it, that is seeking help from a professional. These are people who have studied this for a long, long time. Believe me, there are medications to help you stop alcohol, help you stop smoking.
Yeah.
But nothing in the world can stop you from drinking and smoking. That is your willpower. That's where the irrational part comes in. But I'll get to that in a bit. So main thing is, yes, get medical help. The irrational part, why I'm saying it's irrational is because I thought it was irrational. Till now it makes sense to me. The irrational part is to believe, like what The Secret says, like what Laws of Attraction says, believe that you don't have that problem. And you should think the exact opposite of it. For example, let me take my case, right? A lot of financial issues, a lot of financial debt, unhappiness with maybe job or sections of your job, relationship issues, multiple issues. You have to believe the exact opposite of it. Now, when you say that you're in debt and you want to, the opposite of that is not you're not in debt. The opposite of that is you're rich, you have more than enough money to live by, things like that. Because your mind is very, very powerful, and at the same time is very, very obedient. Right? It hears debt, it's going to absorb debt. Right? If it hears you're rich, it's going to find ways to make you rich. Now, as stupid as this may sound, but the universe will find you a way. I am saying this out of experience. Now, when you read books like The Secret and the sequels to The Secret, you will see a lot of names, a lot of people saying that this has happened to them, this is how they use laws of attraction, but you haven't heard it from someone whom you actually know, or someone who is around you. Now, if you take me as one of those people, believe me, financially, the kind of help that I got are from people whom I never even thought in my life I would ever ask a penny. And here I didn't ask a penny. It came on its own. The relationship took a different toll altogether, in the sense, in a good way, right? It became the best relationship that I can ever have. As far as job satisfaction is concerned, and being happy with your job, doing what you really enjoy, I just gave 3 rounds of interview for my dream job, right? Just gave in sense like just few days back. Put a time frame to it and say that by this time I am going to get it. And here the underlining and the most important word is conviction. You can't look at the mirror and just say that I am rich, right? And in your mind you're thinking how you will be rich. You know, the loans are so much. Which bank is going to give you a personal loan? You have used up 80% of your salary. Now, in the next 20%, no sane bank will give you any loan. You have already taken enough money from your family. They are not going to help you. Those are the things that should not even pass through your mind. Let the universe decide. Tell me this.
Yes.
When, I mean, definitely you won't remember this, but when you're a child, right, you're born, assume that you remember, you have the memories of being a child, a toddler, right? You're lying down on the bed, wrapped in a blanket, and you see a child crawling next to you. You can't even move your hands and legs, right? And you'd be probably thinking, I'm never ever going to crawl. And before you know it, you start crawling.
True.
The one who's crawling can see the next baby walking, right? You can't move your leg more than, couple of centimeters.
Yeah.
How on earth are you going to walk? But you end up walking, right? So it's a universal truth, and it's a fact that let the universe decide, and then let the universe figure out ways to make it happen. Your one job is to believe, right? Ask, believe, receive is what I believe the secret says.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a very long answer for that question, but that's a state that I'm in right now, and I'm in a very happy state, and that's why it's a beautiful state, and that's how I got through depression. I'm still under medication, but if you spoke to me 8 months ago and if you speak to me today, you'll see that it's two different people.
Of course. Yes, I completely agree with you. In fact, I myself have read the book The Secret. I read it even now. I mean, I've read the book maybe more than once, but whenever whenever I feel low, or there is some part of my life where I cannot understand what is happening, I randomly open a book. I mean, I randomly open any page from that book and I read a chapter, and surprisingly that resonates. It is exactly what you're going through, which is why I always tell everybody, the people who I know personally, that when you're asking for something in prayer, don't ask for what you want. Let God decide, let universe decide what is being given to you. Very recently, one of my very close friends has lost her mother, and it was a very, very difficult phase for me and my close friends here as well. And during that thing, I only told her one thing. you know uh, whatever happened is obviously was very sad, but I told her that ask in prayer and tell God, do what is the best for your mother, because at times what we think is our best cannot be what is God's best. And that is where the universe, that is where God comes in place. And that is where I have also understood that sometimes you want a particular thing, you want that job, you want that relationship, you want a car, or you want something, but maybe that's not meant for you. Maybe that is not what God has decided for you. Maybe there's something better. And when something goes, there is always something which comes. So that is what The Secret teaches us. And I really advise a lot of people, I mean, to whoever is listening today, that if possible, read the book. It will help you change your mindset. It will help you understand how the universe functions, because I always say this, trust the universe, and universe has your back. That's all. And that's my mantra as well, personally. So I completely resonated with everything that you said. Very, I mean, it was so inspiring, Rajat, that you shared your personal story, and I really got emotional as well in the between of it, because for somebody to come out and speak something like this takes a lot of courage.
Thank you, Bonita. Now, along with this, there's one thing that I missed out to say, right? There are terms and conditions, right, for all these things as well. Now, here are the terms and conditions. One is yes, believe with conviction. But the second thing, like all of you out there, and I'm pretty sure all of you are already in that state of mind, but do good. Get rid of all the negative emotions that you have in your head, greed, envy, anger, and do good. Do good. It can be anything small. Like I said, it could be just sharing your experience with someone, even if it is money or whatever it may be. So in a lot of cases, what I hear is, and this is probably very common. So if you now you look at the child's face and you feel like you want to give some money or some food to that child, but maybe your neighbor or your friend or you told that this is a racket,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Rajat, your voice is breaking. I think there's some network issue.
They take the money, they are probably going to be richer than you're sure they might be traveling. But my thought, sorry, sorry, are you guys with me?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know how much you heard, but the example that I was giving is when
While
you
we
see a
didn't hear
beggar.
the example, it got cut off at that time as well.
Okay. So if you see a beggar at a traffic signal and you want to give the child some money or some food, uh, and your neighbor or everybody around you says that this is a racket, right? That they take this money, they're probably richer than you. They're probably going to use it for drugs or alcohol or whatever it may be. You know, my point is, if you want to do that, if you want to help the child, please go ahead and help it, because help the person, because you're doing it with a good intention. Now, the receiving person, if they use it for their bad intentions, and that's their problem, right? So the point is that if your mind, if you have, you get that intuition that you want to help this person, and even if you see that the person has misused it, keep this in mind that you did it out of good faith, right?
Yes.
Because uh, point is that they misused your faith, so you're not at fault. I'll give you an example. Um, there was this watchman once under the building, and one day when I parked my bike, this guy was um, he looked very, generally he is a happy-go-lucky fellow, but here he was feeling really low and sitting quiet. So I went and asked him what seems to be the problem. So he said they actually fired me, and it was somewhere in the mid-month. And they said that I'm not doing my job properly and all this, which is true in a way. But nevertheless, he said that the state is not ready to give me my half month salary also, and I need to go back to my village. My family is struggling over there. Even this half month salary will mean a lot. I need to go immediately and stuff like that. So it was it was mid month, but in when I looked at my wallet, the only amount that I had was $500, right? And honestly, I was very very tight. But looking at his emotion, I kind of like gave him the $500, and I said, "This isn't much. Obviously, your half month salary, I'm guessing, is at least around 5 or 6 thousand. But if you need to go, at least this will get you to your village." And I did that out of good faith. Now, 2 days later, while I was going to work, the MMRDA's construction was going on. I see the same watchman over there working. Right now, I can always, I could have stopped because he's right in front of me. I could have stopped and asked him, you know, just 2 days back, you said that you needed money to go home and meet your family. And that is the reason why I gave you the money. But here it seems like it was a reason for you to just survive 2 days to get another job. Now, that's the assumption that I'll make. But there can be multiple reasons towards it, right? Maybe his family said that coming with that much money is not enough. You need to figure out something else. We probably have someone to get married, or, the family is struggling. So I didn't make any assumptions. I just thought to myself that I did that with good faith. So, just leave it. Don't beat your head over it. So if you feel like doing something good, please do it. The result was at the end of that month, something that I never knew that managers would get. I got a half yearly bonus. So although I gave the $500, I got some amount unexpectedly into my account. So what you give, you'll get something like 10 times in return. And you need to believe that. But yes, don't brag about that. I went and I did this, I helped this person, put it on social media. I think all those is not necessary. Just do it with good faith.
I think it is the good and the bad both. Whatever you give, it always comes back. That is why karma is in place. And I'm a very
Yeah.
strong believer of karma. And I think that that is what, in fact, even the Bible tells us, and also the law, I mean, the secret. In fact, the secret has different books like The Power, The Secret, and there are, I think I've almost read all of them. And very rightly said, that is what the secret tells us.
Yeah.
So let me go to my next question. See, there are many men, there are many reasons where men do not seek help, and this is known globally. Okay, it is said that men keep quiet; they just hold it within them, and I've seen this myself with a lot of men around me, at workplace, in my personal life, my friends, my family. I've seen this. So, why do you think that they, it's difficult for men to open up if they're going through a dark phase? Why they do not seek for help?
So, uh, well, when it comes to men, I'll again use myself as an example, right? There was this time in my childhood once, my dad decided to take me to an ATM machine, right? I was very happy to go there. And um, it's the first time I went with him, and he put the card in, he pressed some buttons, and the money came out. And I was so overwhelmed by the experience, and I thought that I could never ever handle this on my own, right? I know it's easy to handle an ATM machine, but at that age, it's like I'll always need my father's support. Now, I think culturally, a lot of people are um, growing up or have grown up with the thought that you're the head of the family. I mean, I've even heard that in some syllabus, which I think is very, very wrong. But nevertheless, the man is the head of the family. So all the responsibilities and everything, he takes it on his head, and it feels like he feels like, or I'm just guessing in my case, right? I feel like I'm the foundation of the entire family. Now, if I fall, everything comes tumbling down. So I need to be strong. I need to act. I need to put on a face where I'm always happy and nothing hurts me, or I'm too strong and I'm too big to fail, so on and so forth, right? Um, I think that's one of the reasons why uh, men don't really open up. And generally, opening up, from what I've seen, is that maybe they'll call their friend, go to the bar, have a couple of drinks, and settle it then and there, right? It became like a social thing to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't help, honestly. It's just a temporary solution. If even it's a solution, I'm not even sure that's a solution. But yeah, I mean, I feel it's a cultural thing, is what I feel. I could be wrong, but at least in my case, that's how it was. Because I feel that my dad took a lot of responsibility, so now it's my turn, and I cannot show that I'm weak.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, many of them do think like that. Now, see, since we live in the Indian society, they say that everybody knows that depression is real. Everybody, it's just that they don't want, some people don't want to accept it, which I keep saying that, acceptance and all. They say men cannot cry, men are stronger, and things like that. Why is it taking so much of time? Why do you think people are still not accepting that men can be depressed, they can be sad, they can go through a phase in their life? We just need to respect that. As a woman, I think it is very important to appreciate all the men in your life. Be it your father. I mean, I have a brother, and my father, and all the other friends who I know personally. I think it is very important for us. See, women always receive some kind of appreciation somewhere or the other. I think, but we lack in appreciation. We lack appreciation for the men in our life. Be it a small thing, maybe they bring, like my brother brings me a glass of water, or if he's making me some coffee, or he's taking me somewhere. I think we need to start appreciating, because when you start appreciating and stop complaining, maybe men will feel a little better about themselves and stop feeling, stop feeling the burden what they usually feel. I think
Yep,
we
yep,
all have to start appreciating the men in our life.
yep. I totally agree.
Yeah, so okay. My next question is, see, we all, not all actually, let me not term it as all, but we do have childhood trauma, which when we grow up as an adult, it affects our life, it affects our relationship, especially. We see a particular pattern in our family, in our parents, how they grow up. People are coming from, this topic was already covered in one of the episodes, where there are children coming from dysfunctional families, broken families. In today's world, they don't want to get married, they don't want to get into a relationship. I've heard this from so many people. So why do you think it's important to set a good example, uh, in front of our children, and simply not have children just because you are up at a particular age, you have reached 35, you have reached 40, but maybe you're not prepared for it. As a human, you need to mentally be prepared for it, because if you get a child in this world, you cannot be putting responsibility on a child who's not even born, to fix your marriage or to fix your relationship. I think that's not fair for the child. The child is not even in this world. So why do you think it's important to take these steps in a marriage?
So in our case, in mine and Sophie's case, so this is my opinion, and this is based on things that I've gone through. I feel at least the child should grow up at least in between one parent, right? If one is working, at least one should be at home. And my wife was happy enough to take that responsibility. Uh, See, children, I think, um, not I think, I'm sure they are so innocent and naive, that they don't have. I mean, they may show remnants of some stuff, which again I think they are grabbing from somewhere, of maybe jealousy, anger, or whatever it may be. But otherwise, these things don't exist in them, and that's why, um, today I know. children are more stuck with iPad and technology and things like that. But somewhere you will see the gifts that's given to them. I believe everybody comes with some kind of gift, right? And concentrating on that becomes your life and the beautiful state that you can live in. Now, for example, if I take myself, I was very good with drawing, painting, and things like that. And it just so happened that whenever the discussion came in of making that as a career, the choices put in front of me was, what are you going to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to make posters outside? Are you going to paint walls? Are you going to paint houses? Nobody ever thought that he could get into VFX. He could become a graphical designer, right? He could be an architect and things like that. So at some point in time, that discouragement made you stop pursuing it, right? Whereas my daughter, she's also the same. I mean, she can draw really well. I mean, she's using her talent to create apps and things. So I feel creating that environment is very, very important. It's not about grades. It's not about getting the highest marks in your class. It's not about coming in the first, the first three ranks or whatever it may be. It's all about what other interests do they have and what do they love doing, and creating that environment is very, very important. Protecting them from all these negative uh, people as well as situations is important. That doesn't mean that we're making them weak. That means that uh, we are helping them concentrate on what they're good at and how a child should ideally be, right? And get them out of that social stigma of everything is about education, everything is about eating on time, and a proper systematic way of living, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I would say that creating that environment at a young age is very, very important, and taking that up uh, till they grow, until they are self-sufficient, means a big deal. I mean, in within between me and my wife, I would. I'm very grateful that she decided she wants to be at home, and she was also working, and be that parent.
Good. Rajat, so the next thing is, what tips would you give to our male listeners for overcoming depressions or any challenges which they face? What are the, can you share a few tips? I think can you hear me, Rajat? Rajat, can you hear me? I think.
Yes, I can hear now.
Okay. Can you, did you hear my question, or do you want me to repeat it? Sorry, guys, I think he had all informed me in advance that since he's in Kerala, there could be issues with the network. He'll just be back with us.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry. What was your question?
Okay, my
raining
question
outside.
was, what tips would you give to our male listeners, especially on overcoming depressions or any kind of challenges they are facing?
Okay, I think this goes regardless of gender, male or female. I would give you the same tips like before, but something new that I would say is that, for the longest time, I blamed everyone around me, and because of the situation that I was in, I blamed it so much that I filled my head with negativity. The fact is that in reality, you can't blame anyone for the things that you have gone through, right? You can't even blame yourself for the things that you have gone through. Either you can look at it and ask 1,000 times, why me? Or you can ask 1,000 times, why not me? And like I said in the quote that I sent to Bonita, you can either look at it as a curse or you can look at it as a gift, where you got to experience that, and now you can understand someone else who's going through the same and help that person get out of it, right? Or be able to stand face to face to that person and say that I understand what you're going through because I have gone through it, right? And if I have survived it, you can survive it too, right? Rather than that person falling into a ditch and not able to get out of it and destroying his or her life. That's one. Don't blame anyone, right? Not even yourself, right? What is supposed to happen happened, and now think of it as a gift because it has given you wealth of knowledge and wealth of experience. Second, have a rational approach. Reach out to a psychiatrist. Take medical help. Irrational approach is you have to assume that you don't have, not assume is the wrong word. You have to believe that you don't have that issue. Whatever you feel is the issue, with conviction in caps, right? Believe that that issue does not exist. If you are in debt, believe that you're rich. If you have a bad relationship, believe that you're very, very happy and you have an excellent relationship. If you are in a job that is not satisfying to you, believe that in next 6 months you're going to have the job of your dreams, so on and so forth, right? And it will change. Let the universe decide how to make those changes and how to get it in front of you. You don't bother about it. These are the 3 tips that I would give you.
Very, very
Anyone?
well said. Okay, so my last question to you is, how do we reach out to men, especially if they are not at all expressive? Because if somebody is like a man is sad, angry, happy, they just have one face. Sometimes it's difficult to understand if they are going through something, if they are sad, if they are, how do we approach such men? I think everybody wants to know this, because this question had come when I post request on all the groups that I have. So somebody sent me this question. So I think even I would personally want to know, how do we approach?
So the first advice that I'll give is don't poke the bear, right? So what I mean by that is, if a person is not ready to express, now here's how I'm visualizing things, right? I'm visualizing it as someone who's probably sitting and drinking every day or throughout the weekend when he's supposed to pay attention to his family, help out with household chores and things like that, but he or he prefers sitting and drinking or whatever. By poking and by annoying, you're not helping at all, right? And it goes vice versa, whether it is a woman, man, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? If you are going to go and nag and crib and state that, how much are you going to drink, right? And how much money are you wasting? Do you even think about us? Whole day you're sleeping, and when you sleep and get up, this is what you start with, so on and so forth. You've just opened the Pandora's box, because that guy for sure is going to drink more, right? Just because this situation has happened. Instead, my advice is that, see, let's take the example of children, right? The ones who have played with children, who have their own children, or who have been children. Everybody have been children. There's this game that we play, right? Acting like you're sleeping. Now, when you're acting like you're sleeping, nobody can come and wake you up. But when you're actually sleeping, anybody can wake you up, right? Similarly, if this guy doesn't want to change, he's not going to change, right? The feeling should come from within. The ego should drop and say that I am an alcoholic, I have an alcohol issue, I need to handle it. By continuously putting that in his ear, you're only irritating or nagging. Instead, use the other methodology that I said. The so-called irrational approach, which seems irrational right now, is to believe that if this is creating a problem, right? Because there are situations where it's not a problem. There are people who drink but are happy, jolly, apart from destroying their health. Otherwise, they are harmless, right? But if it is hurting you and if the relationship is abusive or whatever, I mean, abusive, I don't want to get into it because it's a very thin line. I mean, if you're in a really bad relationship and if it's toxic, then you probably need to get out of it. But in a situation, in a situation where you want to change a person and understand what is bothering you. Is it the fact that he's drinking alcohol or how he's behaving after he drinks alcohol or whatever it may be? Believe that you don't have that issue and let the universe decide how it will be corrected. Suddenly, you might start seeing changes. He or she might start attempting to work out, little bit because you've had enough or something happens where things change. For all that, my wife made a wish that way. That's probably why I changed, right? So similarly, that's the advice that I can give. I mean, I can't think of honestly a rational approach because when you're under the influence of any substance, talking and nagging and irritating and getting angry at that person is absolutely useless. Exactly. Through my experience. Yeah. Right? You have to talk to the person when the person is sober, or just wish and believe that that issue doesn't exist and the universe will take care of it. He might change overnight, he might take a while to change, but automatically he'll realize that his health is getting destroyed, his work is getting affected. There is so much that he can do if he stops these kind of behaviors.
Exactly. Absolutely. Very, very well said. I'm sure everybody who is watching today is going to agree on this, especially the wives who are watching this, because, nothing is going to happen if you keep nagging and keep telling that person not to do it. I think in fact, they do it even more. There is a way to handle with these things, and that person gets irritated and, they do it even more. So thank you so much, Rajit, for this. And okay, now before we conclude, I just want to ask anybody who wants to say anything, to Rajit, y'all can switch on your camera, put on your mic, and y'all can say something to him. Because I'm getting a lot of personal messages in the chat. I'm not sure if I can read them, but I would want somebody to say something to him. Or even if your wife can switch on the camera and we can see your daughter, and if she wants to say something. Anyone?
I'm okay if it's a question also that you have.
Hello, can you see me?
Yeah, okay. This is Shane D'Souza.
Hi, Rajit.
Hello.
I don't know if you recognize me. I was really put really well from your side. It was amazing. I mean, I have never known you to speak out so well. Rather, you should not even speak that much, as far as I remember. But this is really surprising. It was really inspirational and really, really well said. Really
Thank
well
you,
put.
Shane. Appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate that. Cheers.
Melissa, do you want to say anything because your mic is on? Anyone else wants to say anything to Rajit? We have very few minutes. We'll be ending the show. Okay, let me see what comments we got. We have a comment from Chitraski Shetty. I'm not sure, is she your sister? Because you had told me once. Okay, she said good motivator and grounded. Then we have a message from Roger. He says, salute you, buddy. And yeah, Shane already said something. And even I believe Roylene said something. Said amazing, Rajat. So, Rajat, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
And before we end, is there anything that you want to say? If there is anything in your heart and mind, and thank you once again.
Just this much that refuse to live in any other state than being in a beautiful state. Always imagine yourself in a beautiful state and try that exercise. Be grateful towards the end of your day, at the beginning of your day, and see how the life will take an entire U-turn and how your life will change. Otherwise, nothing else. Thank you all. And
Thank you so much, Rajat. Thank you guys for joining in today. I will be uploading this episode in a couple of days on YouTube. So in case if you want to share it with any of your friends, because this is really inspirational. Thank you so much once again. Please stay safe. Don't forget to wear your mask. Good night and happy weekend.
thank you. Happy weekend, everyone.